Welcome to this lecture on how to create impactful PowerPoint slides. So I'm seated down for this because I'm hoping that you are seated too with your laptop in front of you with PowerPoint open, because as I take you through these slides, I'd like you to practice with me so that you can learn these techniques of how to create impactful, beautiful looking slides that's just going to add a little bit more dimension to you as a speaker. The fifth T in how to create impactful PowerPoint slides stands for thought. Now let me tell you why I've called this thought. Let's assume right now I'm about to serve you chocolate cake, and I've been baking this cake the whole day. And when you arrive, I just didn't have time to change. So there's chocolate sauce all over me. And when I'm cutting the cake, I couldn't find a nice knife, So I found a butter knife. And it's not the perfect triangle, and I was rushing a little bit, so I smudged part of the chocolate icing with my thumb, so there's a bit of a thumbprint on this icing of the chocolate cake. Sorry. And I couldn't find a strawberry, but there was a green grape, and so I put a green grape onto this chocolate cake. In terms of a saucer, I'm rushing, so I found any type of saucer, and this particular one is a little bit chipped. And as I serve it to you, I found what cutlery I had, and so the fork is a little bit bent, but you can still use it. And instead of finding a napkin, I served this chocolate cake with a crumpled serviette. How do you feel about eating chocolate cake right now? Not so much as you thought as it was in the beginning. Perhaps you're looking forward to it. Now, instead, let's assume that I'm serving you chocolate cake, and that picture looks like what you see on the screen. Instead of serving you in the first way, I change. I find the most delectable strawberry to put onto the top of this chocolate cake. Perfectly drizzled chocolate sauce, served on white china plates with a perfectly rolled up napkin and sterling silver crockery. I wheel this in on a silver trolley, and then I say, here's your chocolate cake. And of course, on top of that, I have changed, and I'm looking a little bit more of a hostess for you. Would you like to eat this chocolate cake now? And I'm sure your answer is a yes. So as we start on looking at PowerPoint slides, why am I giving you this analogy of a chocolate cake? Well, the reason is simple. When you're putting PowerPoint slides together, be reminded that either you are serving them mushy chocolate cake or elegant chocolate cake. When I look at people's PowerPoint slides and I see how they basically just copy and paste from Excel and just dump it into PowerPoint, or they copy and paste stacks of paragraphs and sentences from Word and they put this into a PowerPoint, it reminds me of how you are possibly served at times. Mushy chocolate cake or elegant chocolate cake. So as I take you through the following slides, I'm going to take you through what I see as mushy chocolate cake slides and elegant chocolate cake slides, so that you can learn the difference and how to include and incorporate such slides for yourself. Let's get started. I'm taking it for granted that you know the basics of PowerPoint and you know roughly how to put a slide together. What I'm going to show you is some extra features on PowerPoint that will help you to take ordinary and make it a little bit more impactful for your audience and for yourself as a speaker. The first technique has to deal with picture formatting. If you look, this is a normal picture as you would have downloaded it from a stock photo website. And this is the same picture that has been enhanced. And if you look again, it's the same picture, but it looks a little bit frazzled. How do you get these techniques? So to show you, I am going to take that same picture and once you have that picture within your PowerPoint slide, the first technique is to make sure that the picture is as big as possible on your slide. Right-click on the picture, say Format Picture. Look for this icon that helps you to format the picture, and I want you to view picture transparency. And by altering and adjusting, you can see that you're going to start having that effect of the picture being very sharpened or very blurry. And when you have that blurry effect, let's just stop there. I can then go into insert a text box, and then that will allow me to put in as much text as I want on top of it. So that's the first technique. The second technique is still under Format Picture, and looking at this icon, you look at something called Artistic Effects. Bring down this particular icon, and what you'll see here is a range of options that gives you that granular type of look. So if I go back to my original picture and say Artistic Effects, you can actually adjust it to that black and white grayscale effect, or a little bit more of a color but slightly blurry. And again, by just slightly altering the picture, it creates a bit of a dimension and it livens up the screen a bit. So play around with this and see what image works best for that particular slide that you are delivering. Now that you know how to alter some pictures, let's look at where you can find these pictures. High quality images, I'm going to suggest a few websites for you. There's Pixabay, there's PicJumbo, there's Gratisography, there's 123rf.com, and there's Shutterstock. And if you'd like to see what these websites look like, this is the first one. It's Pixabay, and as you scroll down, you can see you can open an account and find all these awesome pictures. And for me, when you look at these pictures, the picture needs to inspire you as to how you can use these pictures in the context of your presentation. The second one is PicJumbo. And again, you can see just by looking at these pictures, I mean, for me, you need to be inspired by the picture. Don't let your content get you drilled down to say, how can I find a picture of a chair, say? Look at some of these pictures and say, oh wow, there's a picture of the ocean. How does that ocean relate to your message, and how can you use that particular picture of the ocean and weave it into your message? That's what makes for memorable presentations. 123rf.com is another awesome website for images. You can also find royalty-free music in here. And there's so much content in here. I think you just have to spend the amount of time, create the account, and just let your imagination take you through a journey of discovery. Most of these websites, you don't have to buy the content immediately. It allows you to save a variety of images, and when you're ready to purchase, you can sort of compare one image against the other and then decide which one is best suited to your message. This website is called Gratisography, and again, as I scroll down, there's some funny pictures with this bunny and the dog picture, this man with the weird glasses. These are amazing images. And what I tend to do before I put my presentations together is I set aside some time, an hour, hour and a half, after I have scripted my talk, because I've already covered with you how to script your talk. And you'll remember that I put my PowerPoint slides almost in the second last step. So at some point when I'm ready to put my PowerPoint together, I spend time looking for pictures. And what I love with these websites is that once you create a collection of pictures, you can then reuse pictures for future presentations. The last website is Shutterstock, and you can browse by stock image category. It gives you a set of recommended pictures at the start based on the time of the year that you happen to be in the website. So yes, play around with these websites and find the one that you're going to use, or maybe one or two, and start that collection of high quality images. With that, I would like you now to look at this particular picture that I have on the screen. As I said, the picture needs to move you, it needs to inspire you. So when you look at this picture, you need to ask yourself, how can you use this picture to relate to your message? When I look at this picture, I could look at it and say, I could use this in a project presentation and say, we are now exploring the unknown. And the first part of this rocky mountain is phase 1 of this project, where there's a lot of hurdles and obstacles to get through because everything looks so daunting and high to climb. Then phase 2 is a little bit more steep, but not as steep as the first mountain. And as we move on to phase 3, going into the project, we start getting to this end. Now let's look at picture number 2. And again, how would you use this picture if I had to say, use this particular picture in your presentation? Perhaps you could use this as the start of your presentation to talk about what's going to come through on your presentation, like some sort of high-level agenda. I could say, here's my team members that were part of this project. That's the team lead, and there are her 2 team members that supported her on this project. That's another way of looking at it. Now let's look at icon and graphics. And if you look at the screen, that arrow that you're seeing, you can incorporate that if you go into Insert, look for Shapes, and scroll down a bit, and here is that particular arrow. Once you find that arrow, bring it onto your screen and then just adjust with the content and put whatever text you want around it. So that's easy, that's within your PowerPoint mode. But what about this particular icon, which looks like a bit of a robot? Those are not within your built-in general PowerPoint icons. For that, you can come to a website. It's called the Noun Project. And as it says, there's an icon for everything. So let's assume that you're looking for a chair. And it comes up with different options of chairs. And it's a different type of graphic. So if you don't want a high quality image, but just a bit of an icon, and you can put this as part of your content, or instead of putting bullet points for each different point, just a round bullet point, you put an icon to represent the theme of that bullet point. And it's again a different engaging way to make your content come alive. So I like this particular website, and I would suggest that you use this as well. Let's go back and look at a particular file. Now, as you can see, you have a person on the screen. It's a bit of an animated view, and he's busy on his computer. And it's almost like a moving image. It's called a GIF file. And here's another one where people are walking. And this is quite cool as well because it's so easy to do. So let's say you want to find a GIF file and you want to incorporate that with your PowerPoint. I'm just going to look for something really crazy like pizza falling from the sky. So put that into Google. Go into Images, and then next to it put GIF, G-I-F, right? So as you can see, and now find something that is interesting. So I'm just looking at a few images here. Let's say I want to go with this particular image. All right. So I've got this image, and see if you like it. It's sort of changing different colors. Let's try to find another one. This really looks like pizza, and then you got this crazy picture of a bear on the side. Okay, that looks a bit scary. Let's try another one, but you're understanding what I'm trying to get at here. Oh, this looks interesting. So here is a pizza that is falling and it's turning around. Okay, I like that picture. Say I want to download this. So you'd right click on this, you'll say save image and save it to downloads, and you save it in there. And when you are bringing it into your PowerPoint slide, let me just create a new slide in here. I now want to bring in this file. So firstly, get rid of all the other text boxes that are within that slide and say insert picture from file. Go and find that within your folder that you saved this in. And once you have that, resize it as you can see me doing it now. So say I want to make this the entire width of that screen. And if I come out of this here's your pizza that's revolving. I think this is a pretty cool technique. So again, I've just used this particular image. You can find whatever image as a GIF file and incorporate that within your presentation. Have fun with this, because again, this creates a little bit of movement on your PowerPoint slides and makes for a much more interesting slide. With that, let's look at technique number 2. Technique number 2 has to deal with tables. Now, whether you incorporate your table within PowerPoint as an Excel table, as an object, or if you are using the table within PowerPoint, it doesn't really matter. At the end of it, I'm going to show you how to take that information in the table and make it a bit more easier for your audience to grasp. So, as an example, this would be a mushy chocolate cake slide. It's too much of information all at once. If I have to ask you where's your eyes, it could be in either one of those columns or in any one of those rows. And on top of that, the information within the table, the figures, are left aligned, and ideally it should be right aligned. So to fix this, you have two options. Either you put in a frame, which looks something like that, or you could put what I call covers on each one of those columns. And with a click, each one of those columns then fall away, revealing the content behind the cover. So how do we get there? I'm first going to copy across a slide, and then I'm going to just expand the screen so that you can actually see what's going on. To do the first technique, you'll come into Insert, Shapes, and look for this icon that says Frame. You put that over any one of the figures that you would like to highlight. You would right-click on that frame, say Format Shape, and change the color of the frame to one of those signaling colors, either red, orange, or yellow. And so it would look something like that. That's the first technique. The second is to put a cover over that. So if you come into Insert, Shapes, find one of the solid rectangles, take your time with this, and make sure that the entire column is covered. Right-click on it, say Format Shape, change the fill to the same color as the color of the table, come under Line Fill, which is here, and change the line, which is the outer lining, as the same color as the inner color. And once you've got that, copy that across to each one of those columns. And take your time to make sure that the cover is entirely covering that particular column and there's no overlapping of those lines. Once you're happy with that, you now want these covers to fall away with something that is called Exit Animation. So come into your animation pane, look for Exit Effects, click on the first rectangle to make sure that is engaged. And you've got lots of options here, but don't be too animated with this. I mean, you can see that you can cause this to peek out, to dissolve out, to fly out, but those are very distracting animation for me. I just want it to disappear. So click on Disappear, click on the next cover and Exit Effects, click on Disappear, and the same with the third. So now when you bring this back into PowerPoint mode, on a click, the two techniques are combined, where it reveals the information, but it also has the frame that focuses the audience's eyes to a particular figure. And there you have it. Now let's look at technique number 3, which is incorporating pictures. First, what does a mushy chocolate cake slide look like? And here's an example. What I don't like about the slide is that the pictures are all different sizes, and there's no picture references with those pictures. And the heading is very obvious, it says pictures. So how can we change that? If you look at the screen now, it says Find Your Passion. And with a click, the picture and the description comes in together. All the pictures are the same size, each picture has a reference, and there's consistency between the upper and the lower caps. So how do we get there? If you just follow with me, I'm going to copy the slide across, and if you have a look at this animation pane, you would see that there's numbers all aligned to the picture and the description. What I want to do is just remove the animation on the last few pictures so that you can see what I've done here. Firstly, to change the size of the picture, you basically click on the picture and use the lines, the guidelines within PowerPoint, which is that red line, to make sure that your pictures are the same size as everything else. Number 2, you come into Insert Text Box, and beneath the picture, you put in the description of the picture. Easy enough. Once you're happy with that, you now want to bring in entry animation. So with the last picture, you click on the picture, come into animations and say appear. PowerPoint sees the picture and the object as separate objects. Then click on the text box, say appear, animation. You have a lot of other options like dissolving in, flying in, and again, I don't want those fancy animations, they're very distracting. Just appear is simple and straightforward. Now you would notice on the side that my numbering has changed. The picture is a reference number 4 and the description is number 5, but I want them to come in together. So in the animation pane, find this timing button and change the description, which is currently coming in the order of the 5th, change it to come in with the previous. And you'll see when you do that, it changes the 5 into a 4. So the ordering of it then looks as follows. You would have this other image, which is lower and uppercase. So if I have to fix that, I'll say that must appear. And if you see on the side, that changes to a 5 ordering system on my PowerPoint animation. And so there you have it. This slide has been fixed and it looks a little bit more elegant. Let's now look at our 4th technique, which is long text. This is a mushy chocolate cake slide for me, which is too much of information all at once. A better approach is to firstly change the title bar to being in the center to being left aligned, and on a click, each line comes up one at a time with key words within the sentence being highlighted. It's a cleaner approach. The second better way of showing this information is to use smart art. So you take the key words within each sentence and you incorporate it with a bit of a graphic. And as you can see, each one of those tiles are in a slightly different shade of blue. And by having that color contrast, it adds a bit of excitement to the slide. The third approach is by having the same slide, but what I've done now is I've incorporated those covers, and with a click, the information gets revealed, which allows you as a speaker a little bit more control over the content and allows you to talk through each point before you move on to the next. So let's see how we're going to do this. I'm first going to copy the slide across, and I would like to show you how to include this animation in. So highlight this entire paragraph and say appear, and you do the same for the next paragraph, and so you would carry on with each one. And at some point as you go through this, also consider which words within that paragraph you would like to highlight and emphasize. Once you're happy with that, now come into your home page. And again, just choose the words that you like to highlight and change the color of it. And I'll also suggest that you bold this so that it just stands out a little bit more. And either choose bold, italic or underline, but not all 3. It's just overemphasis. So now if you come back into PowerPoint mode, here's your information, and on a click, the information gets revealed. And you can actually see the difference between those sentences that are highlighted and those that are just written out in full. That's the first technique. Now let's look at how to incorporate that smart art graphic. I'm going to create a new slide. The first thing that I would suggest that you do is to delete this text box. Now in PowerPoint, look for Insert, Smart Art, and there's a whole list of options. You could do List Smart Art, Process, Cycle, Hierarchy, Relationships, Matrix, Pyramid. ones that you can incorporate your own pictures with. I'm going to keep this quite simple and look for the one that says process. I'm going to find a smart art. It doesn't really matter which one, as long as you get the drift of how to incorporate this. Firstly, you can change the color scheme of it. So I am going to keep it to the shades of the blues. And you can also change the dimension and the look and feel of it. So you could have it like a 3D effect, or keep it quite two-dimensional. So I'm going to keep it simple like that. If you click on this arrow to the left-hand side, this is where you change the text within the smart art. So this could be point number 1, that could be point number 2, and that could be point number 3. And within the subfolders, you put in your text. So whatever you want to say in there. And as you type in the information, you would notice that the text also increases and expands and adjusts to the size of the screen. And there you have it. That's your smart art graphic. To incorporate the other option, which is to put a cover over it, you would then go into Insert, Shapes, and you'd use a similar technique. Find an arrow that will cover this block. And using the previous technique of changing the fill to the same color as what is on the screen, changing the line fill, and using your exit animation, you then allow the information to fall away. So come into animations and say disappear. So I've done this for the first one, and you would do this for every other item. So now you have that effect with a smart art with the cover, and on a click, the information gets revealed. Let me show you a different technique. So if you look at this screen, it's again a lot of text on the screen, which is a mushy chocolate cake slide. And if you look at the screen here, it has completely changed. So all I've done is taken keywords of each item in the sentence, and using a combination of smart art, brought in a very colorful visual. Now what makes this information so impactful is that with smart art, every alternative line is a different color, and every alternative bullet is a different color. On top of that, every alternative line is either in bold or not. And if you want to take that one level further, using smart art, I can put those covers in, and with a click, the information gets revealed. So I'm combining a very nice smart art graphic with my earlier techniques of animation to reveal the information below it. So I'm hoping you see now the impact of simple graphics, simple animation, and just using smart art to make your information pop out. Now let's look at graph animation. On the latest versions of PowerPoint, you are able to animate your graph. So instead of the entire graph just coming onto the screen, you could do something like this, where on a click, a category comes in one at a time, or on a click, each item within the category builds up. So you are able as a presenter to build the story as the graph animation comes into play. Let me show you how to incorporate that chart animation. Firstly, create a new slide. And under Insert, say Insert Chart. I'm going to keep this simple to a line chart. When you click on this, you will see that PowerPoint opens up Excel in the background. Now I'm not going to take the time to populate Excel for you, but you would take the time to change the column headings, change the figures within it, and make sure that you save this Excel spreadsheet in the same folder that your PowerPoint slide is. And here it has populated that information onto this chart. So now I want to show you how to incorporate this chart animation. You would click the actual chart, come into Animation pane, and click on the word that says Appear. What you'd see on the side now is something that opens up that wasn't there in the animation pane, that's called Chart Animations. If you open that out, you can now change this by showing the graph by series, by category, or by element in series, or by element in category. And I've chosen the last option, and that is how it would show on the screen. One at a time, and again, it depends if that's what you want to show ideally with your audience. I think this is a fantastic tool that has been created, so use that. Technique 6 is about alignment. Remember earlier when I covered pictures? Well, PowerPoint has made this easier for you. Instead of just using those red lines, which is quite standard, as you can see on the screen, if you come into PowerPoint and come into View, you can activate what is known as a ruler or guides. And as you can see on the screen, the ruler with the guide allows you to make these changes to the picture that's very precise so that you get the sizing absolutely correct. When you're done with that, deactivate guides and ruler and go back into PowerPoint mode. Let's look at technique number 7, which is overlaying text onto a picture. So I've been overlaying text, as you can see on the slides, from the beginning of this tutorial. When you are overlaying text onto a picture, this is a mushy chocolate cake slide for me because the text and the picture are clashing for eye space. Better is to have your text showing as is on the screen, or even better is to have something like that type of visual. So how do you create it? Let me start from scratch and show you. So once you have your picture, adjust the picture where it's a certain size within the screen. So as you can see, I've just adjusted it. Put your text box into it, right click on this text box and say Format Shape, and create a solid fill that is a nice contrast for the color background. So I'm just going to change it to something like that and change the text to black so that it stands out a bit more, or maybe a charcoal black. There you go. So that's the first technique. The second, change the size of the picture, bring the text box to the side, and before you think it's as simple as just changing the font, it's not. But of course that is a step that you would do. So that's a bit too big. Let's try 60 as a font size, still too big. Let's try 45, 55, there you go. Now, if you try to expand this, you'll see that the text box jumps back to where it was. To make the text box encompass that entire white space, click and enter at the top, go to the bottom of the line, click and enter, and even though it goes beyond the slide space, when you come out of the working frame into PowerPoint, you have a perfect slide. So again, in summary with this is how would you like to be served? When you're putting your PowerPoints together, don't just copy and paste from Excel or copy and paste from Word. Take pride in everything that you do, and every slide needs to have that attention to detail. And when you put that attention of detail to it, it also shows your credibility as a speaker, that you just haven't given them any chocolate cake. It's the chocolate cake on an elegant serving. Now that you know how to put a PowerPoint slide together, click on the next lecture where I'm going to give you a bit of an activity to do to consolidate your knowledge from this section. See you then.